Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Chakodash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutation to the hopeful elect out there. You Akim to Zadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shaman. This week's topic, I'm going to be going over the famine of the word. You know, I'm pretty much inspired by what happened with the brother in Vegas. GMS Vegas sat down. He had a channel that we had for a number of years. Very edifying videos. Without cause, without anything, just randomly, boom. Well, not randomly. They just took the channel down. You know, and, look, this is nothing new to us. It was far more rampant early on in the truth that I remember. You know, YouTube was very strict. Now, you know, we kind of be wise with our words, respect the guidelines to the best of our ability. But even when we do that, as you can see, they'll just shut it down. And there's going to come a time and point where they're going to shut everything down in terms of, hearing this word, And there will come a point in time also when we're not going to be going out there. So get this truth as much as you can, contribute to this truth as much as you can, because like I said, this will not always be readily available, man. All right, they could shut down our phones at any minute. You know what I'm saying? Nowhere to communicate, nothing. Anything could happen at any minute. They could shut the world down at any minute. So get this food while you can. It is prophesied in the book of Amos, chapter 8, verse 11. That says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will send a famine in the land." So the Most High is going to send two forms of famine: an actual famine where there's no food, and famine doesn't necessarily have to be no food. It could be a lack of access to food that could create a famine as well, right? Bridges are blocked off, these sorts of things. It says, the Lord, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst of water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. So this word is likened onto food, and I always say, always treat my channel like a pasture. You know what I'm saying? This is a pasture, and you want to make sure that your flock has food to eat, food to graze. You know what I'm saying? That's how come you have to constantly keep doing your videos and being diligent, because this thing is it's selfless and it's also selfish, because in doing so you're working out your own salvation, but you put in the time and effort, all right, on your lessons that your congregation and your flock, or rather your flock, is fed. You see what I'm saying? 12, "And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it." That tells me also that this internet thing is going to be shut down too, man. All right, they what they do is they create. So either something is an organic black swan event. Most black swan events, tend to be synthetic, meaning they orchestrate these catastrophes of major world events, all right, to further an agenda. You know what I'm saying? So that famine of the word is prophesied in the scriptures is going to happen, whether the Most High do it organically or just put the spirit on Esau to create the catastrophe. But something is going to be there to shut this thing down, man. All right, and there will come a point in time also when you're going to see this truth on the mainstream. You know what I'm saying? Elon Musk, he bought Twitter. He put a lot of the alt-right or right whatever back out there, and so-called conspiracy people that had lost their pages. So you had Alex Jones pop back up on there. You had people like Ryan Dawson, which that surprised me. Andrew Tate, this guy Myron Gaines talking to shit. Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, Blackstone Intelligence, Jake Morfonio, Scott Ritter, all these people that will go into this things and like stuff like Epstein's and stuff, they pop back up. So a lot more information is going out there, like what's going on with them so-called Jews or whatever over there in the land of Israel. And it's only a matter of time before they say, wait a minute, these people are real Jews, and then, XY is going to lead to Z, and then the Israelites are going to be in the forefront eventually, Deuteronomy 8:3 just going into the point that you can't just live by physical bread. This is the book of Deuteronomy 8:3. And he humbled thee, and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know. So angel food. That fell from heaven while we was wandering in the wilderness. And then when you go into the Apocrypha, it tells you too, like the manna, it pretty much tastes like whatever you liked. You know, so like if you're a guy that's into burgers and shit, you ate the manna, that's what it tastes like. If you like lamb, that's what it tastes like. You know what I'm saying? And Jake still wasn't satisfied and wanted to go back to Egypt, you know. But Yahweh Shah is also that spiritual manna, all right, that's feeding us in the wilderness, you know, the knowledge and wisdom understanding that Yahweh Shah brought. It says, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Exactly, you know what I'm saying? So you need the word of the Lord to live spiritually, you know? If you don't, you're going to be dead from the neck up, man. You know, which most of the people in the world are. You know what I'm saying? It's just, you know, I drive around, I'm looking, I'm just like, man, there's a ton of people in this world, just here in New York City alone. And very seldom have the knowledge, wisdom, understanding that's given. You see, so most of them, you know, this is why we live in the valley of dry bones. People are dead, man. What it says in the book of Proverbs, I believe the 24th chapter, he that wandereth out of the way, the man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead, man. Matthew 4:4, just the Lord jumping back to Deuteronomy 8:3, he says in Matthew 4:4, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the Most High. All right, and Yahweh Shah was that bread of life. You know, Yahweh Shah is that bread of life. That's what we teach. He, you know, he's that man. This truth right here is what really quickened us again. You know, scriptures also speak about eating the book, eat the roll, which is digesting this knowledge, wisdom, understanding. You know, first it was sweet, then it gets bitter. Meaning when you first hear about this word, you get very excited. Yo, I'm an Israelite. America's gonna be destroyed. You get very amped up. And then when them trials and tribulations hit, you like, shit, man, this thing is bitter. But then it gets sweet again, and then it gets bitter again, then it gets sweet again, then it gets bitter again. You know, that's just how the truth is. You know, it has its ups and downs, ebbs and flows, man. Isaiah 5:13. It says, therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge. So this precept, I wanted to bring it out to show that, you know, now lacking knowledge and wisdom, understanding could also be compared to lacking food. Read it again. Isaiah 5:13 says, therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Exactly. All right, because they don't have any knowledge. They're famished. So that famine in the word is going to a lack of knowledge, lack of understanding is what the hell is going on. You know, people are going to be running around trying to find breakdowns, trying to find prophets. All right, a man of understanding these scriptures is going to be more precious than gold in those days, man. All right, just like it says in the book of 1 Samuel, the 3rd chapter, in the 1st verse, when Samuel came on the scene, it said the words of the Lord was precious in those days, because they didn't have a prophet on the scene for over 300 years. Right, we had judges. So when you have a man that's able to go into these scriptures and break down the understanding, and act as a mediator between men and the Most High, all right, when all hell breaks loose and that knowledge is locked up, people are going to be seeking after that man. You know what I'm saying? You know how many people in this world, when this thing hits, is going to be saying, man, I wish I could speak with the apostles to get some guidance, or brothers, or elders, and to get some guidance as to what the hell is going on. But really, first and foremost, you should be, in that day, praying to the Most High, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, for guidance. And while this word is available, consume it as much as you can. All right? Grow in this truth as much as you can. Don't just remain stagnant. You know? And if possible, Be a doer, not just a hearer of the word. That's in the book of James, the 2nd chapter. Got to be proactive. This is the book of Job, chapter 23, verse 12. Again, just more precepts about this word being food. It says, neither have I gone back from the commandment of his lips. I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. You see? I have esteemed the words of his mouth more than my necessary food. Because what? Because men shall not live by bread alone, man. This thing is vital, man. Waking up to who you are. A lot of people out here, they just call themselves black, Negroes, West Indians, Puerto Rican, Haitian, Dominican, Mexican, fucking gone. You know what I'm saying? Those are names the so-called white man put on you. That's not your true nationality. You know how important it is just to know your nationality and know the name of the Lord, how heavy that, just knowing that alone, how heavy that is. You know how you know it's heavy? Because the so-called white man put he does a due diligence to make sure that you don't know that information, that you can't call on your power. You know? When you have the name of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, he called on that name in faith. Come on, man. The enemy don't want to see that. The enemy want to see you calling yourself a nigga, all right, and calling on Jesus. It's the book of Jeremiah 15 and 16. It says, the words were found, and I did eat them. It says, thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of my heart. For I am called by thy name, Yahweh, power of hosts. See that? Hey, man, rejoicing of the heart. Ate them words up, man. You know? And you were given life. We were given life. What it says in the book of John 6 and 63, red letters now. This is Yahweh Shah speaking. It is the spirit that quickeneth. It says the flesh profiteth nothing. Right, it's the spirit that quickeneth. But what's the spirit? Let's read it. It says, is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. Right, so you know what I'm saying? Quicken means to make alive again. You know what I'm saying? And that's what this did for us, man. Every brother could give their testimony to when they first woke up to this truth. You felt like just like holy shit, like you just a new person, like you alive again, because you were seeking answers. You know, the scriptures tell us that Jake, you know, is trying to obtain the truth, obtain knowledge, constantly seeking for it. But when you find it, you find this understanding, you find, you know, whoever is breaking these scriptures down, you're like, man, that's hitting, everything is linking up, a lot of your questions are being answered. You know, it's just that feeling of being like alive again, man. You know? And that's what the word of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua does, which, as the brother mentioned in his video, the brother GMS Vegas sit down, the brother mentioned he didn't monetize his videos, man. Shouldn't be monetizing videos. You got this thing freely, give it out freely. A lot of these camps, you know, you go on their page, you see a bunch of ads, man. I went on IUIC one time. Not only was you had to go buy Nate, you don't have to buy it, but Nate book. But as soon as you go on it, there's a pop-up to pay for some shit, and it's a bunch of paywalls, man. What kind of shit is that about? You know, this thing is, you know, imagine, you know, you watching the video, you know, deep in the spirit. Next thing you know, a fucking commercial come on for Dove soap or some shit like that. I throw everything off, man. You know, you locked in the word. Next thing you know, Dove soap or a car commercial just zip on by. You mentioned Chariot, now car commercials. You know what I'm saying? That shit throw everything off. You know, that's just like a regular. That's why people, you know, they have their Netflix or their Amazon or whatever. They pay for the full shit because, you know, you went to a movie, you know, you pretty much immersed in it. And the ad comes, is like right at the suspense part, the ad comes and just throw the whole spirit off. The whole thing is just like, damn, I'm listening to a fucking ad now. So imagine the word of the Lord. You know? You deep into the word of the Lord, then boom, ads and paid subscription and all that BS. So this thing should be freely given out that people may eat and live again. You know, if you really care about the pasture, if you really care about the flock, if you really care about your people, you put in this word, you put these videos up so they could eat at no cost, man. Isaiah 55:1 says, "Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters. And he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat." So how can you have no money and buy something? Okay, it's talking about coming to this word, all right, and eat, man. Eat the fruit thereof. Okay, this righteous knowledge. Get fed. It says, "Come ye and buy and eat. Yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price." That wine, that milk, that honey, it's all going back to the truth, man. This truth, wine is likened unto philosophy, okay? Milk, you know, the scriptures speak about what? The sincere milk. You know, your babes eat the sincere milk, which drink the sincere milk, which is going into the basics of the scriptures, you know, which you still always go back to. It says honey. Oh, well, it doesn't say honey, it says money, but, you know, but the scriptures also liken onto honey, you know. It says, verse 2, "Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not?" You know, the Lord said what? If you drink of this water, you're not going to thirst again, you know. It says, for that which, it says, "Wherefore do ye spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfieth not?" It says, "Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness." Right? So you want to be, you know, eating, man, spiritually. This knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. In moderation, you know. Sometimes you overindulge in this thing. It's like actual food you throw up. You know, some of the information don't stick. You know, but get this food while you can. As you can see here at Great Millstone, you know, Apostle Tahar gave out the order many years ago now to say, look, minimum of 3 shows a week. So you come here, you're gonna get fed, man. You know what I'm saying? And we get on top of brothers to make sure they're doing that bare minimum, you know, and go out on the highways and byways, of course, for your own salvation and for the flock of the nation of Israel, they may be fed. I would say, hey, man, download these videos if you want, save them somewhere, because at some point in time, this will not be accessible, man. So I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem Rachak Kodash, that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, which was well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Zadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.